are these people?
You were at the DC March, right? As well as a couple other people.
Yes. So shout out to Crab, who was also there.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Joe Nice, was also there. Tried to meet up with both of them, but couldn't because number one, there was too many people, which is a good thing. It was estimated that 300,000 people were there, coming
Right.
in from all over the country to attend, and they packed us like sardines along Pennsylvania Avenue. So those of you who don't know DC, Pennsylvania Avenue is a major faraway, basically going from the White House all the way to the Capitol. So basically 300,000 people were packed on that street along several city blocks from the White House to, they said it reached all the way far back to the Capitol. Couldn't see that far back. I believe it though. So I couldn't meet up with Crab. I couldn't meet up with DJ Joe Nice because everybody was just kind of all over the place.
Right.
Couldn't call anybody because no data. You know, it's just so congested that you couldn't use your phone for anything until we started
Right.
moving for the march.
You almost
But
need walkie talkies.
well, yeah, it was funny because like shout out to AT&T, but fuck AT&T. They asked me, "Oh, do you want to switch over to our satellite?" I was like, "Nope." Like, no way I'm going to try and use your satellite for you guys to know where I am, what I'm doing, and me being at this march. No, thank you. So, but all the same, it was a great time. Actually, if you go back to the first slide. So I pulled this from Mondoweiss. This article is written by Michael Arria, who writes, "The largest Palestine protests in U.S. history shut down the streets of D.C. An estimated 300,000 demonstrators shut down the streets of D.C. in the largest Palestine protest in United States history, calling for a ceasefire and an end to the genocide in Gaza." So he continues. Thank you. On Saturday, hundreds of thousands gathered in Washington, D.C. to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. Organizers estimate 300,000 people attended the rally and march, easily making the largest demonstration for Palestine in United States history. Protesters gathered in Freedom Plaza, where organizers delivered speeches and led chants in support of Gaza before marching to the White House. The event was organized by a coalition of organizations, including the Palestinian Youth Movement, Answer Coalition, American Muslim Alliance, the People's Forum, National Students for Justice in Palestine, Al-Wada, the Palestine Right to Return Coalition, U.S. Palestinian Community Network, U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, and Maryland to Palestine, and endorsed by over 500 organizations representing justice movements across the United States. A companion rally was held on the West Coast in San Francisco and drew an estimated 50,000 people. For the past 4 weeks, we have witnessed the horrific slaughter of our people in Gaza by the Israeli occupation take place with complete support of the Biden administration. This massacre must end today, and we are here to ensure that Israel and its partners in genocide are held accountable, said Yair Shofani of the Palestinian Youth Movement.
Yeah.
Streakers addressed the capacity crowd for close to 3 hours. Actually, it was longer than that. I think it was 4 for me because I got there early and they were going. Started at 2. Well, they said it started at 2. I got there at 1 and they was so
Right.
So a lot of people like 4 hours. Speakers include attorney and activist Nora Ericott, who we're going to listen to in a second, writer, poet, and Mondoweiss cultural editor Mohammed Al-Kurd, historian, author Vijay Prashad, representatives of the Palestinian Feminist Collective, who were joined by actor Susan Sarandon, student activists from across the U.S., as well as representatives from leading Palestinian, Arab, Muslim, Black, Indigenous, and other co-sponsoring organizations.
Right.
So we're going to play Nora's speech. We've talked about Nora before. She was on Democracy Now! Regarding Jamila Jayapal's backtracking on the apartheid of Palestine. I think we did that story back in, I think, early summer, I believe, if I remember correctly. I think back in June. So here she is again, delivering her part of the speech during the event. And here we go.
And thousands of people of conscience gathered in love and rage.
Oh, the sound is...
We are united by our humanity. We are united by our commitment to humanity. Our absolute refusal to let Western powers and Israel bury it beneath their depraved pursuit of wealth and privilege. We are placing our bodies on the railroad tracks that are trying to forge a future through genocide and annihilations. Never again means never again for anyone right now. Our presence even more remarkable in the face of harassment, intimidation, censorship, outright lies about pictures that do not exist. Denial of our dead, whose bodies have not had the dignity of burial, whose beloveds have not had the solace of mourning. And still we gather. We are all here to charge this administration with genocide. Even though the majority of the world, the majority of Americans support an immediate end to the carnage and destruction of Gaza, only 6 out of 535 members of this cowardly, decrepit Congress have endorsed a ceasefire. Every single human rights instrument ever drafted was meant to prevent these atrocities. The Genocide Convention, the Rome Statute, the Four Geneva Convention, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Apartheid Convention. They were all drafted to avoid this moment, and they could not have possibly fathomed that a nuclear power backed by an even bigger nuclear power would be pummeling a besieged population of refugees and children. They could not have fathomed that it would have come after 17 years of siege by a racist settler colonial state that has ethnically cleansed our people for 75 years and still have the audacity to cry victim. Israel and the United States are jointly complicit in the ongoing Nakba in Palestine. Together, they are rendering international law worthless and irrelevant. Every single tribunal, from Nuremberg to Rwanda, from Bosnia to Cambodia, every prosecution at the ICC was meant to atone for our moral failures, to protect us from ourselves, and today we fail to stop. Today we fail to stop the skies from crashing down in white phosphorus flames onto Palestinian dreams, memories, potential, onto Palestinian babies, not old enough to beseech you to have mercy upon them. We are here now with them and for them to demand a ceasefire. We are here because Palestine reveals the naked hypocrisy of Western universalism. It reveals our enduring colonial reality, and it offers a glimpse into a future without colonialism. Palestine, where a valiant people have always existed, where survivors and fighters continue to affirm they belong to a land upon which there is a life worth living. على هذه الأرض يستحق الحياة. على هذه الأرض سنزرع المستقبل. We are like olive trees, like the ones that our ancestors planted. We are unshaken. We are unmoved. We are undeniable. Stand with us in this promise. We promise, Palestine still promises, that we will all be free. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
Well, I feel like I had to take notes. You know, like there's a lot. I mean, she's like, there was six members of Congress that have called for a ceasefire, right?
Right.
You know, I'd even argue that they're not even doing great on that. You know, those 6 that she's talking about. But yeah, I mean, what else is there? Like, she talked about the Geneva Convention. We talked about that last week with DJ Joe Nice, and exactly how Israel is going against that.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I kind of don't want to go through these really quickly, but I do have not a lot, but
Whatever.
I think some speakers that I felt were good. Well, they were all pretty good, but just want to highlight a few of them. But this one was probably the most WTF moment in this type thing. Macklemore, Fresh Shot Macklemore himself, basically showed up, and people were just like, what the hell? But I mean, you know, but he spoke about Palestine, and I think he said a lot more in the 2 minutes, I believe it was 2 minutes that he spoke, than a lot of artists have spoken regarding this issue. So I will give him some credit for that. But yeah, let's tune in to see what Macklemore has to say.
You know, first and foremost, this is absolutely beautiful to observe today. I didn't expect to be on a microphone, but there are thousands of people here that are more qualified to speak on the issue of a free Palestine than myself. But I will say this. They told me to be quiet. They told me to do my research, to go back, that it's too complex to say something, right? To be silent in this moment. In the last 3 weeks, I've gone back and I've done some research, and I'm teachable. I don't know enough, but I know enough that this is a genocide. And we are scared. We are watching it unfold. We have been taught to just be complicit, to protect our careers, to protect our interests. And I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not afraid to speak the truth. You know, my daughter said to me this morning, she said, she's 8 years old. She said, Dad,
that one? Yeah, the blue
when
and
we
white.
protest today, when we march today, how are the people in Palestine going to know that we're showing up? Look at this. Look at this. The world is watching what we do right now in this moment of injustice. There is no side in humanity. We lead with our hearts. We speak the truth. We shut down the propaganda, and we march forward. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Thank you. Family!
All right, Macklemore, you put DJ Khaled to shame.
Yes. I saw him eating his McDonald's today. You know, he got that fucking disgusting fillet of fish. I don't even know. Can you even call that fish?
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's like, I don't know, old dinosaur or something. I don't know. Who knows what McDonald's be pulling out, man?
Right.
Anyway,
let's go back into this. Israel has carried out an unrelenting siege on Gaza since the October 7th Hamas attack, killing nearly 10,000 Palestinian civilians as of the time of this writing. The majority of deaths have been children. Many singled out the current administration for supporting Israel's crimes. Biden, you can't hide, we charge you with genocide was one of the most consistent chants, and multiple speakers alluded to the Democrat support eroding as a result of the situation. A recent poll from the Arab American Institute found support for Biden precipitously dropped to just 17%, down from 74% in 2020. So, speaking on that, up next is Omar Suleiman. He is the founder and president of the Yajin Institute for Islamic Research, and he is a professor, I believe, at Southern Methodist University.
Okay.
So he spoke, and there were a lot of people who kind of spoke regarding the Biden administration, but you know this because I talked to you about this, and I said this on Twitter. What I wanted to hear at this event, which would satisfy my craving, especially coming out of George Floyd, where I heard a lot of Black activists on the ground basically being like, oh, we need to vote for Biden, because Trump bad. I didn't want to hear any of that. And I was obviously kind of scared to hear any of that this time. So what I wanted to hear was divestment of Israel in terms of their military funding and withholding your vote for Joe Biden if there is no ceasefire.
Speakers.
And you ain't Black.
So let's see what Omar has to say in terms of, let's just listen to him.
When the young child who was buried alive will be asked, for what crime were you killed? On August 16th of this year, 2023, I got a news alert that my name had been mentioned in an article. And this time, it wasn't Ted Cruz calling me an anti-Semite. This time, it was another Omar Suleiman, a 16-year-old who shares my name, who was murdered in the West Bank, where, by the way, there is no Hamas. And he was shot in the chest in cold blood while he was riding his dirt bike around the West Bank, where his family has lived for generations. His name was Qusay Omar Suleiman, the same name that my parents gave me. Last year, the 7-year-old boy, Rayan Suleiman, in the West Bank, once again, occupied territory, while he was walking home from school with his book sack, which had an animated car on it, and suddenly found himself being chased down by IDF soldiers who claimed that he had thrown stones at them. And with their full force, they followed him home to his house. And he went and hid in the corner of his room. And as they banged on the door and started to bang on his window, a 7-year-old boy with no medical history died of a heart attack. Cardiac arrest. A 7-year-old Palestinian boy terrorized by the Israeli government. Rayan Suleiman. A few weeks ago, we buried a 6-year-old boy, Wadir Al-Fayoum, a young Palestinian American who was stabbed to death, not in the West Bank, not in Gaza, in Chicago, by a 71-year-old landlord who was directly incited by the hate speech of the President of the United States of America, whose dehumanizing rhetoric and whose repeated debunked lies about seeing decapitated Israeli babies caused the man to go and decapitate a Palestinian boy. When Wadir was killed, I want to share with you something that happened with me. A so-called ally, and I emphasize so-called, reached out to me to express condolences for the death of Wadir. After 2 weeks of having repeated, "I stand with Israel," and failed to acknowledge a single Palestinian baby's life in Gaza. And I responded to that person. And I said to him, what's the difference between Wadir and the thousands of Palestinian babies that are being decapitated by your bombs in Gaza? What's the difference between Wadir and Rayan? What's the difference between a Palestinian child here and a Palestinian child there? You want to know how human a Palestinian child is? Look around you and see all the Palestinian children that grew up in this country because their parents were displaced. And I responded to him and I told him this, and I want you to remember this the next time someone uses this doublespeak of caring about Islamophobia and anti-Arab bigotry in this country, but using the same tactics and framings to justify the killing of our brothers and sisters there. I said to this man that if I had never been born in this country, if my parents did not find a way out of that occupied land to raise me here, you who is expressing condolences to me here would have justified my death over there. There is no difference between a Palestinian that is here and a Palestinian that is there. We have parents that are writing the names of their children on their arms so that if they have to pull them from the rubble, they can be recognized. Is that the type of humanity that we want? No. Is that the so-called moral high ground that this country stands on? No. And so here's what we do. If I was over there and my parents didn't make it out, they would have had to do this to me. And I may have been murdered by the same taxpayer dollars that I'm paying right now. We're sick and tired of being dehumanized. We're sick and tired of being made complicit. We're sick and tired of the rhetoric. We're sick and tired of the occupation. We do not just demand an end to the current bombardment of Gaza. We demand an end to the occupation. We demand an end to apartheid. We demand freedom in every single sense of the word. And let me tell you something, because you know how some people are going to report on this rally. They can mistranslate our movement all they want. They can draw these little pieces of land and say that this is your future state, all that they want. But we are going to draw our map the same way that our parents drew that map. We're gonna use the terms the same way that our parents used their terms. You don't get to dehumanize us and then tell us how we get to resist that dehumanization. And I want to end with one thing. Dear brothers and sisters, pay close attention.
There's been a bill on the floor in Congress about the detainment of over 5,000 Palestinian children in Israeli prisons since 2017 that can't get passed. But somehow 412 congressmen found the moral conscience to suddenly pass a quick resolution to say that they stand with Israel. Know that when they say I stand with Israel, they are saying I stand with genocide. And if Joe Biden thinks that he can use his doublespeak on our community and come back to us and beg us for our votes, let it be known to all of those, including Joe
That's
Biden,
me.
who fail to see our humanity today and who fail to hear our voices today, that we will not see their names on the ballot next year, and we will not hear them when they come calling upon us next year. And that we will not allow for them to tell us anymore that the only refuge we have from right-wing racists are two-faced liberals. Dear brothers and sisters, there are thousands of us here today. There are millions of us around the world. I know that it's a time of anger. I know that it's a time of grief, but do not despair. We will mobilize. We will penalize those who dehumanize us when they call upon us to try to get them into office. We will march. We will raise our voices under the full weight of the political and media establishments. We will not give up because our brothers and sisters have not given up. And even though our names are written on our arms, our parents have embedded Palestine in our hearts. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Well, no wonder you came back with like no voice after that day. You know, like
I didn't yell that much actually.
no.
So, no, I was just tired because I was standing there for like 4
Yeah,
hours, but not
I feel
move
you.
for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So, no, but I think, I'm glad. So well, he didn't talk about divestment, but he did talk about withholding votes. So,
Yes.
So I'm very happy that that was mentioned in a group, in a large forum as he had. And especially since at that point, there were more people coming in to be able to hear that message.
Yeah.
I did want to say this because I know we kind of talked about this and we kind of talk about this a lot. Just as an aside to this, we're not done with this yet, folks. We've spoken about, we always talk about this, like, well, you, Andy, and I, like, these things, right now, everybody, is very reactive, right? Like people want to go out, show up, show out at these protests or whatever. And that in of itself can be a good thing. But I always ask this all the time, is what's next after this?
Yeah.
And, how can you keep this momentum going? And I'm not actually, if you don't mind going to slide 18, Reef.
Sure. I can do that.
I kind of said it on
18.
Twitter. Yeah, that's it. So I'm getting a little ahead, but that's fine. But what I said was, what should be happening as next steps post-Palestine protests is connecting dissent to labor. Unions should be using this moment to call and implement strikes in solidarity. The fact that hasn't happened yet worries me.
Right.
And and I have to say this because Chris Smalls, our friend Chris Smalls, tweeted out solidarity for Palestine, which in of itself, great, but it's like, you being Amazon president, can you not like gather your forces in the AOU and kind of rally with your workers to strike in solidarity of Palestine?
If only he had forces, that would be nice.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It's that My concern with all of this, and that's not to say, and I know there's going to be more, protests after this, which they did
Yeah.
mention at the march. I think there's actually going to be one. There's going to be a walkout, a national walkout tomorrow. In fact,
Yeah. Well, I think I sent you some stuff on other unions doing that.
Right,
I
which
forget
is
which
in
ones.
relation to, right. I think it is in relation, not all of them, but I think many in relation to this.
Right.
But we're in a very vulnerable time, but I think this is kind of similar again to George Floyd.
Yeah.
This is a time where we have advantages. And my concern is that we do not squander the advantages that we have right now, especially given, like the election is a year out. And the fear is people will forget. But I don't want people to forget the leverage that they have, especially for a government who wants to keep the illusion of choice going.
Right.
So if enough people withheld their vote or voted for a party, that will make a world of hurt. Obviously for the Democrats, sure, but also for the Republicans as well, if they're not necessarily coming out in droves for Trump. And I'm just kind of concerned that protests are only going to do so much, but it has to hit like organizations in their pockets in order for them to actually make moves on this. So as I said, I'm kind of concerned that that wasn't talked about at all at this protest as next steps. And it does worry me that, when we've seen this, that a lot of this talk can be infiltrated and be used
And
to
already
kind of
is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a lot of like pandering to this issue because they know lefties have been on it for a while. So if you want to appear to be on the left, you jump on this and you're there. Like there's a lot of people who both sides it until they're told not to. So, but you have more from this Mondoweiss, I think, right?
Yeah. Yes, I do. So I'm here because I don't agree with what the U.S. is doing and the fact we're complicit. Emily, a protester who lived in D.C., told Mondoweiss. It's been really amazing to see the movement grow and see how big it's becoming. I've been working on Palestine solidarity issues for 15 years, and it's been energizing to see all the different actions.
Yep. There you go.
There we go. Arria, a Palestinian protester who came from Toronto, told Mondoweiss that she believes that the U.S. has the most power to stop the attacks. I don't necessarily think this action will change what Biden does, she explained, but it is good for morale. I think it can inspire people to organize more in their communities. I agree, but again, it's just what actionable steps can people take in their communities in order to make a difference.
Right.
And again, that wasn't necessarily talked about. Not sure if that really was the place to kind of talk about those things, but I think moving forward, that is a concern that the DC actions come amid widespread protests throughout the country. In the past week, thousands of activists have demonstrated in cities, held sit-ins outside of congressional offices, and shut down businesses demanding an end to Israel's indiscriminate bombing campaign. Multiple protesters called for further protests for attendees to support internationally coordinated day of disruption tomorrow, titled Shut It Down for Palestine. These are the largest anti-war protests that the country has seen since the Iraq War of 2003, but many activists point out that the mainstream media has understated their scope. CNN said 40,000 people showed up, a young woman checking in on her phone told Mondoweiss after the march. Al Jazeera said 100,000, offered her a jab with a chuckle. So I actually have one more clip. This one will be short. This speaker is Nawad Awad. He is co-founder and executive director of the Council of American Islamic Relations. He spoke for longer, but I managed to catch this part. Again, kind of speaking in regards to Biden and and what steps we should take, in order to call for a ceasefire. But so again, just another way of people using this moment to say, we are not going to vote for you if you don't demand a ceasefire. So let's play that.
And his party understand is the language of votes in 2024 elections. And our message is no ceasefire, no votes. 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 No votes in Michigan. No votes in Arizona. No votes in Georgia. No votes in Nevada. No votes in Wisconsin. No votes in Pennsylvania. No votes in Ohio. No votes for you anywhere if you do not call for a ceasefire now. After hearing this message in the past week and a half, and the fact that 66% of Americans support a ceasefire, the President, the Secretary of State, Democratic senators and representatives started to change their tone. We will make our voices heard more and more. In November, we remember. 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 A White House official told a friend of mine that the community has a short memory. A few months, then they will forget. And let me tell them, in November, we remember. In November, we remember. In November, we remember. So, Mr. President, enough is enough. Call for an immediate and unconditional civil ceasefire right now. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, my only issue, and it's not really one, I feel like they're giving Biden too much of an easy out. Where it's like, oh yeah, all he's got to do is call for a ceasefire and he gets our vote. Okay.
Right.
Democrats will do that if you give him a minute. You know, like he's already earned not my vote. He never earned my vote to begin with. So
I think this could have been an opportunity again for solidarity across the board to be like, fill in the blank. No, whatever. No student loan debt forgiveness. No $15 million wage. No, like all of that stuff is applicable to this administration. I get it in terms of this issue is very,
direct,
specific and direct in terms of what's happening in the news right now. But as Victor Devan said, ask for more. Don't, like right now we're in a point of leverage because the Democrats need our vote in order to, as I said, to keep the illusion of choice going. So what demands are we making? And we might as well shoot for the moon. This is exactly what we wanted the squad to do. In terms of force to vote. This is exactly what we should have been doing back in 2020. But because of the idea of Trump, that people were just like, oh, we have to get rid of Trump. So I'll hold my nose and vote for Biden. And look where we are now, 3 years later. So I definitely do agree. And that's the part that does scare me. But as Nawad said, I don't think people are in this group that were there will not necessarily forget. I'm more concerned about everyone else.
He's already called himself a Zionist. Like,
right.
I don't know how he ever was going to get your vote to begin with.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, sure, I get it. I'd just be like, you know, and not for those other. How many did the other speaker say? There was only 6 left, right? How many matchsticks left in the box?
6.
Right. So how many left in Congress? 200.
529.
20. Right.
Something like that. Yeah.
Right. Like they don't get your vote either.
Right.
You know, like as none of the above. None of the above. Like,
Right. Honestly.
Yeah. I'm sure those people coming off due dissonance definitely are none of the aboving right now about RFK. So just do that for the rest of them, and you're good.
Right.
But you know, and this ceasefire, it's very much seems like a call for peace. On top of that, you know, which I feel like we've got words about that. I mean, we don't.
You found this for me.
Yeah. One of our favorites has words.
Right. So, and I think this in all could be a segment in of itself, but you know, so here's Kwame Ture. He's on the far right with the sunglasses on,
looking like Stevie Wonder.
Right. So let's see what he says regarding peace.
Peace.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not?
Yeah.
You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct?
I mean, out of the gate, he's already in pretty deep, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he just tried to explain the difference between peace and actual freedom. Right off the gate. Like, that's deep waters already, Kwame. Like,
right.
These white people ain't ready. Like,
there's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct?
You can have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.
By the way, my favorite part of this video is this gentleman right here. Yeah. I don't know who that is, but his face in all this is like, yeah, you white people need to listen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just staring at him.
Although that chick looks like Asian, but whatever.
Sure. Same difference. I think this is from a movie. I'd love to know what movie this is from.
Okay, then that's what you should talk about. Never peace. That's the white man's word. Peace. Liberation is our word.
But you will want peace in the end.
Yes, but you can't have peace until everybody's equal.
But you seem free at the moment.
I seem peaceful at the moment.
You seem free.
I seem peaceful. Am I free?
I think not.
Oh, he thinks not, Care Bear.
Yeah.
He thinks
so.
Not.
I think so. As I do, had to check the definition between peace and liberation. So, you know, because I think we kind of make the association of peace as liberation, which peace is the idea. It's like quiet, tranquil, you know, but that's more individualistic,
right?
In terms of, and I said this, gave you this example when we today, like for you, for peace is watching UFC fight.
Which is arguably not the most peaceful thing for other people, but I can like meditate that shit.
Right, so, myself included. I'm not. That's not a peaceful time for me. I don't get that, but it's peaceful for you. So it's very subjective and very individualistic. And you can make the argument, especially in our government, like they just want peace, and you can define what peace means when they say peace in the Middle East.
Yeah.
what does that mean? You know, like,
and it's usually, are you tranquil, able to control your emotions, like,
right.
you know, like inner
So-
peace, like that kind of
Right.
stuff. It's about, it's all
Or
self,
I think,
individualistic.
or what I think in the case of Israel is like, shut up and let us
Right.
off you all,
Yes.
and you'll have peace.
Yeah.
You know? And we'll have peace because we get to
I
take
said
the
this,
land that you.
I said this the other day, Colin, and I think you caught it as well. Of like, and I said this twice in the last few days with different endings. But, you know, funny how the nation state that trains our police uses the stop resisting approach. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's what this is.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys need to stop, be peaceful, peacefully demonstrate, which they've done a lot, by the way. Like, you still shot them. Like, you know, and so now they're trying a different tactic. That didn't work. I'm going to try something different. See how you
Right.
respond. Like, you know, I was nice. Now I'm not nice. So, yeah, it's
So
just.
I think definitely. I never honestly. I did not think, because you sent this to me this morning. I think it's subtly we tend to think of peace as the highest form of, you know, whatever you want to call it. But
Right.
But I think just even with the language there, you know, I think we need to be very careful in terms of,
Well,
as
it's how
we
one,
say, if you're gonna
how one achieves
if you're
that
gonna-
peace, right? You know?
right.
So,
Like what Palestinians want is liberation, freedom, because they are oppressed, which that's what liberation means. It's the idea, in what I looked up, is the idea that literally being free into like a prison. So that's what we want for Palestinians, and actually that's what we want generally in all oppressed communities.
peaceful inmates,
Right.
essentially, you know?
Right. But you
but-
brought in this last one. This one, I think we kind of showed a clip similar to this before. But this is just a slight variation of, you
Right.
know, Zionism
Similar
and
stuff.
Judaism. So, but
Yeah.
he kind of goes in a little bit more here. We can end this segment here. So go
Yep.
ahead.
Which has brought about the state of Israel, the so-called state of Israel. This political philosophy has nothing to do with religion. On the contrary, it seeks to confuse others and let them think that Zionism and Judaism is one and the same. I am a conscious African. I know properly my history. I know that Africa gave Judaism to the world. I know that the first Jews in the world were Africans. Not only do I know this, but I inform everyone who has doubts about it to read a book by Sigmund Freud entitled Moses and Monotheism as a beginning. Consequently, I know that Judaism and Zionism are not the same. Zionism had its first organizational expressions in 1897 in Basel, Switzerland, in Europe. Here was a man by the name of Theodor Herzl, H-E-R-Z-L. He was the founder of Zionism. He said that he was going to find the state that God promised the Jews. Listen to this very carefully. This man, Herzl, was an atheist. He believed that there was no God. He said God did not exist. Now, how is it the man who believes that God does not exist is going to find a state that God promised to his chosen people? I'm telling you, this man is Satan in disguise. Zionism is a satanic movement. It is devil. It is imperialism. It is racist. It has gone and taken the lands of the Palestinian people and through terrorism has driven them out. And through terrorism, it maintains its power. And the United States of America, with over 6 million homeless, sends to Israel billions and billions and billions of dollars everywhere to bomb Palestinian people while homeless people are here and unemployed are here. Zionism is going to raise this war and make the people of America become clear to what it is and become anti-Zionist and stop the aid to Israel and use the money to take care of the homeless.
Huh? Y'all motherfuckers listening at home?
I mean,
Like-
play that part again. You got play that part again. Like,
Its power and through terrorism has driven them out. And through terrorism, it maintains its power. And the United States of America, with over 6 million homeless, sends to Israel billions and billions and billions of dollars everywhere to bomb Palestinian people while homeless people are here and unemployed are here. Zionism is going to raise this war and make the people of America become clear to what it is and become anti-Zionist and stop the aid to Israel and use the money to take care of the homeless.
I mean, given how Kwame looks here, this
Yeah,
had to
this
be in
was
the
like-
90s. Had to be in the 90s.
Might even be more than that. Might even be 80s.
90s,
which has brought about
80s,
Like
90s for sure. So he
late
was speaking on
70s
this,
even.
right?
Just by
so
the
he
look of
was
the
speaking
footage.
this almost 30 years ago at least.
Yeah.
And look what's happening now.
Yeah. And he didn't even get to the whole like Nazi connections to Herzl and stuff like that. That's a whole different story. So yeah, like Kwame spitting essentially.
Yeah. Right.
But
so I mean, it's great. So overall, in terms of the protests, I thought for what they were, it was great. Minor nitpicks, as I said, but again, my biggest hope moving forward is number one, that I hope the Arab community has learned from how we failed within the Black community in terms of BLM, George Floyd, that they learn from our mistakes and really drive home the idea of, and as you said, like really vote. Like if you have to stay home, to vote, but don't just attach it to, Palestine. People need to make demands, and I think especially now that Democrat Party so far has lost Arab voters, they've lost Black voters, and they've lost young voters, and there's going to be intersectionality between all of those demos that we should be demanding, like we didn't get this, we didn't get this, we didn't get that. Like, so throw everything at the wall at the Biden administration and basically be like, look, we do not have to vote for you unless you get these things passed or done, or we're staying home. And so whether that means, and I'll say this on record, like for next year, like if you vote for a party or if you stay home, probably the way to go versus voting for either one of these parties. And, and I believe, and we said this, and I have to say this, we talked about this early in the week. I feel like this is going to be like next year. It's going to be 2016 in reverse, in terms of there were people who were very embarrassed to vote for Trump, but did anyway. And once they got backlash.
Yep.
I think there's going to be people this time who are going to vote for Biden in spite of all the shit he has been doing, because Trump bad.
Yes.
And they will be shamed for it, like in the next year or so. So, we just want to say to you, like, nothing is an option too. A no vote is also a vote. So, but we'll see how this goes. Shout out to all the protesters and the organizers for this event. But like I said, I hope there's attachments to labor in light of this, so that, and God knows if we end up in a recession, whew,
Well, yeah,
it's gonna be it's bad for the Democrats already, but it's gonna be.
We were talking about before that like it can get, if you think it can't get worse, like strap in. Like history has not been nice. You know what I mean? So, it's gonna be a ride. But leading to our next segment. Go ahead.
Actually, before we do that, do you want to pull up our donation slide? I do want to get there, since before our screen crashed, we were looking for it. So I did find it. But I did want to show this to you guys, because as you know, that we are temporarily, hopefully, demonetized on YouTube.
Yeah.
So if you want to support us financially, obviously, as we say every week, don't feel compelled to give your, just being here and sharing and liking and subbing to us, that's gift enough.
Yeah.
And obviously right now we're in the holiday season, so you guys are, spending money on presents in addition to life right now. So obviously we know a lot of you have financial things going on right now. But that being said, if you feel inclined to give, the best and cheapest way would be through Cash App. So you could see that link there.
Yep. Money sign Indie News Network. Very easy.
Right. Rockfin and Rumble on those streams there if you want to give there.
Yep.
But be aware that they will also take, I'm not sure how much of a cut, but for Rumble, people watching us on Rockfin and Rumble, you feel free to continue, giving paid support there. Or if you are a member or thinking of becoming a member, I know shout out for our YouTube members. You can also become a member on Patreon, Substack, and give monthly support that way, which will also be very helpful because that's consistent versus, like one shoots off of YouTube and all the other and Rockfin and Rumble. So, but however, so yeah, as Crab said, Patreon and Substack is the best. And also Cash App if you wanted to give a one-time donation. But in any ways that you can support us during this time. And otherwise, we thank you. We love you. And yeah, so please feel free to give, but don't feel compelled to.
Yeah.
Always take care of yourselves and your families and communities first before you give to us.
Cool.
And